Okay, today was my day to experiment with Little Windows resin. It's a two-part resin and comes with a mixing cup and a little wand, couple mixing cups and little wands. So anyway, to move right along here, it mixed and started out with your mix it for 2.5 minutes and then you let it set for 5 minutes, and I got the same results as using ice resin. It had few, if any, bubbles in it after it sat for 5 minutes. Then I did I can see a little indent over here, but that's alright. Then I did a pour on top of encaustics, and it did a beautiful job. So far it's starting to set up, and here's a good example of my just now catching something. So I'm going to take my little toothpick and even out that area, since I have a natural divot in that piece. And it's already set up at least 15-20 minutes, but it doesn't seem to care if I mess with it like that. I think this stuff is amazing. And it's only about half the price of ice resin, so that's the reason for my paying attention to it. So anyway, here I started a backless bezel with a small amount of resin so that I can do a build. Here again is another backless resin. With this I did one small layer. I crunched up some mica flakes, fabric fragments, these guys here. There we are. I just stuck my finger in some of the resin. Ugh. Anyway, and then I took some resin with a little bit of oil paint, blue oil paint, mixed it, and then just dripped it gently in there to get some blue color, which I thought came out real pretty. So we'll see how this layers. And then this is a silicone mold, and what I did was pour some clear resin in there to see what might happen. This is a casting mold. I poured a slight amount of resin in there, placed a picture that had already been sealed so that it wouldn't bleed. I think this picture was sealed with ice, with a previous ice resin sitting, and but I also could use Mod Podge with that. And then I added some mica flakes, and if you can see around the edge right here, there's just a tiny bit of that blue also I dropped in there, the blue with the oil paint. Now this is a piece of copper, a copper ring. It's not very deep, it's very thin. And I put packaging tape on the back of it, and then I added a bit of resin, and then I layered pre-resined papers, some torn, some not, on the inside. And I'm interested in seeing how that comes out, since my 2 pieces of tape, which were required to cover the back of this because it's pretty good sized, I think leaked a little bit, so we'll see what happens. These round things you see are from the Dollar Tree store. They're actually dartboards for little kids. They cost me $1. They have little prongs that set up and hold the resin on the piece. They hold the piece, and then when the resin is poured on the piece, it actually self-levels and self-domes and does not drip off the sides of the piece, which I found absolutely fascinating, because I've always done my resin pieces on plastic, and they've always dripped off the sides, and I've always had to try to clip that off later. Here again is another example. I bought 2 of these. I wish I'd bought 10, but each one of these pieces, including leaves that were dried, ginkgo leaves, some brass pieces that I had patinaed myself with potato chips and vinegar, and even a piece of tissue paper. Isn't this amazing? That all I did was cut it out about the size of a nickel, and I don't know if you can see it better this way. There we go. Cut it out. It's the size of a nickel. It was sealed with a little bit of Mod Podge. I set it on there, just poured some resin on there, and not only did it self-level, it domed and didn't drip off a bit. I just think this stuff is amazing. Or maybe, you know, it's amazing because it's just as good as ice resin, and these little doming things I got from the dollar store make it even more amazing. So, moving along, let's see. I think that's all there is to it for right now. I mixed, let's get the whole thing in here, my current finished results. I've mixed 3 batches of Little Windows resin. Each time I was able to wash the cups out and reuse them with no problem at all. I used my paintbrush and was able to wash that out, and it's clean, and that was no problem. And Little Windows also comes with one of these wands. It's made of plastic, and it's got kind of here we go, slanted end. And I re-washed those each time after working with an entire batch, and they cleaned up just fine. So there's no having to throw away your brushes or anything like that, which is what I always had to do with ice resin. I'm still fascinated at the way these things dome. Anyway, I'm going to leave them for a little while, and that's on purpose. I have the paper sticking up off of there. I'm going to leave everything for a few hours and then come back and add some more layers and also see how well everything is doing. Part 1 of Kate's experiment with Little Windows resin. Stay tuned for more.